I just went to see The Cabin in the Woods. I really like that film, The Cabin in the Woods. I suggest you see The Cabin in the Woods, the latest stuff from Joss Whedon. And that, my friends, is my all-natural, 100% spoiler-free review of The Cabin in the Woods, co-written by Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard, produced by Joss Whedon, directed by Drew Goddard, and starring a bunch of people who have been in Joss Whedon's TV shows, as well as a bunch of other people as well. There's your review. Now, people have been crazy about the spoilers on this thing. Don't say too much, I'm just like, and people are really reining it in, and I think a bit too much. So I'd like to talk a little bit more specifically about the film, about the story, and what have you. So if you're one of those people that doesn't want to know nothing about it, then I would suggest, darn it, I gave away the title. I'm sorry about that. I know you guys, some of you guys out there, wanted to go see this movie without knowing what the title was. I'm sorry, it's The Cabin in the Woods. I'm sorry if I ruined that for you. I apologize. Seriously, people are Nazis about spoilers with this thing. I don't get it. They're like saying, well, we can say that there's 5 people, and they're probably college students, and they go to this place that might be a cabin that's out in the woods somewhere, possibly, and then some stuff happens to them, and maybe they're in danger, and there's this other group of characters, and I can't say a thing about them. I'm just like, come on, really? We're talking about stuff here that happens, like, within the first, 15 minutes of the movie, okay? And they don't want to say. It doesn't make any sense. I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about what's happening here in the plot threads. Just the basic premise for it, the setup, okay? Because the setup is not just a bunch of kids go into the cabin in the woods and then they get attacked and they have to fend for themselves, okay? There's more to it than that. Not a lot more, but more. So I would like to get into that a little bit. And if you're one of those people, like I said, doesn't want to know any more than just the very basic part of that part of the story, well then please feel free to watch another video or sign off and go see the film. I would recommend you do so, especially if you like comedic horror movies, because that's definitely what this is. It's a comedic horror movie. Or it might be a horrifying comedy, something like that, I will say that I didn't find the movie all that scary. There were some good jumps here and there, and there's plenty of gore and blood, that kind of thing, so if you like that stuff, you're going to like the movie, probably. But it's funny, Ryan 1988, Justin, I just watched his video earlier yesterday, and he really didn't like it all that much, and for pretty much the same reasons why other people really like the movie a lot. But hey, everyone's got their own taste, so maybe not everyone's going to get into the surprise elements of the film, but I did. I liked it a lot. In fact, I like those surprise elements a lot more than what everyone is supposed to know going into it, or everyone should know going into it. Like I said, I'm going to give you a few more details about the storyline, but first I wanted to tell you about my own experience, because this is a Joss Whedon related production. He wrote it, and as I would watch a lot of his television shows as they aired on a weekly basis, I made a point of turning it off before they had the here's what's happening next week on Buffy, here's what's happening next week on Dollhouse. I figured, hey, Joss Whedon's a great writer. I can go into any episode, totally cold, as long as I've seen all the episodes that came before, and I'll know what's going on. It's not a big deal. And I don't need to know a week in advance what might happen in next week's episode. So I, stayed away from the reviews. I watched a whole bunch of them after I saw the movie, a whole bunch of different YouTubers, and the response, of course, is generally positive, and my response is positive as well. So here's what I did know. I knew who was behind the camera, Joss and Drew, and I knew some of the people who were in front of the camera, like Amy Acker, who was an angel in Dollhouse, and Fran Kranz, who played Topher in Dollhouse, and let's see, Tom Lenk, who of course played Andrew in Buffy and a couple episodes of Angel, I think, as well. And some of the more veteran actors, I guess you could say, like Richard Jenkins, of course, and Bradley Whitford, of course. I've seen both of them in a bunch of stuff. There's a few other recognizable people here and there, but not necessarily ones that I could put names to. the whole, and of course we have, the Chris Hemsworth, who acted in this movie basically before he even made the first Thor movie, and now it's like, he's being directed by Joss Whedon in the Avengers. So first he makes Cabin in the Woods, and then he goes away and then Marvel hires him to do Thor, and then Joss Whedon gets hired to do the director, so Chris Hemsworth walks on the set of the Avengers in his Thor costume and looks at the guy sitting in the director's chair and he goes, "Hey, I know you!" And Joss Whedon looks at him and he goes, "Hey, I know you!" Yes, I'm sure that's exactly how it happened. Anyway, you've got the 5 people, college students. There's 2 girls and 3 guys. And, one of the guys is on Grey's Anatomy. Yeah, the 2 women I don't really know at all. You've got them, and they're all getting ready to go have a fun weekend. Chris Hemsworth is telling them how his cousin has this cabin out in the middle of nowhere, it's off the grid, there's no GPS out there, no cell phone, whatever, they won't work. Just to go swimming in the lake and have a good time, and of course, we know bad things are going to happen to them because it's a terrible thing awaits them there. The question is, what's the terrible thing, of course? Now, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but I will tell you that initially, zombies are involved. And this really reminded me of The Evil Dead because at one point, they discover what appears to be an old diary from way back, decades and decades and decades ago, of a family that I guess had some sort of encounter with something horrible, and they read this passage out of the diary, and then zombies come out of the ground and attack each of them. Now, here's the aspect of the movie that a lot of people don't want to talk about, but is established very early on in the film. And this is what I don't understand about people trying to keep a lid on this part, is because it's not like, in Ransom you had Gary Sinise as the kidnapper, and Mel Gibson doesn't know his identity, but everyone in the audience knows who he is because we see scenes of him, with his cohorts looking after the kidnapped kid. Early on in this movie, you've got the first scene with Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins and Amy Acker, and they're just hanging out at their job, this building somewhere, and they're talking about various business-related stuff, and they're talking about their home lives and what have you. And this is the part that people want to keep a lid on. No, we can't talk about that part right there. What's going on? And we don't even know from the first scene what they're doing. They're just hanging out, and it appears to be totally unrelated. Of course, I knew going into it that something was going to be up with these guys in the cabin, because what I knew just from looking at the trailer is that whatever they were facing was technological. It was something man-made. It wasn't necessarily a supernatural force that was after them. So these guys basically are orchestrating a whole bunch of mayhem to be directed at our, unfortunate college students. And they do this by monitoring them. There's hidden cameras all over the cabin, and there's some sort of protective force field or something like that that's keeping the whole area secure, the entire area where the cabin is located and the few acres around it. Amy Acker, and Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins, they're all sort of manning the control panels and watching how everything's going and seeing what their progress is. And eventually, you get the idea that they're not only manipulating their environment, but they've actually been manipulating their lives and manipulating their behavior for a while. There's dialogue referring to how one of the women has tried this new blonde hair dye, and that's actually got a chemical in it that's going to seep into her brain through her scalp and affect her behavior that way. So they're clearly setting something really big up right here as far as, they got all the hidden cameras and everything like that, and they're really pumped. They're in a celebratory move. They're enthusiastic about the coming mayhem, whatever that is. And so this is the part of the movie that I was really curious about. I was wondering, what are these guys doing? What is all of this the benefit for? And I'm not going to tell you exactly what that is, because that's probably a big spoiler, so I'll leave that part alone, exactly what this whole operation that they're running, is in aid of. What is its purpose? But in the meanwhile, the guys, they're dealing with, the guys in the cabin, they're dealing with, the zombies, and there's, danger, and they're trying to survive, and they're trying to get away, and they're trying to avoid being killed, and what have you. And then the story takes several different turns, and then you find out exactly what the whole thing is. I mean, the characters, they get a better sense of what's really happening to them. And, of course, I'm not going to get into that either. Now, complaints that I had about this movie. Overall, like I said, I really liked it. Complaints I have about this movie are first of all, it isn't really that scary, because when you see people getting attacked by zombies, it's nothing really new. And I was just sort of waiting for that part of the movie to be over with, to be done with, so we could move on to the more interesting secret stuff that I didn't know anything about. There's a couple of moments where characters are seriously injured, or they're attacked and it looks like they're seriously injured, but then although they're bloody and messed up, they still run around with lots of energy, and it doesn't look like they're really hurt that much at all. So that's a little problem I had. It sort of took me out of the film for that bit right there. And the section before they really get to really figuring out what's going on here, where they're just basically dealing with zombies attacking them, it goes on a little bit longer. Of course, I was waiting for something more to happen beyond that, and so I was, probably a little impatient. If I didn't know anything about what happened later on, or that something new was going to happen later on, or something different, and there was just going to be this dramatic turn, then I might have not have been as impatient. Oh, then I might not have gone to see the movie in the first place. But, obviously, Joss Whedon got to see everything that he does, so I was kind of, hooked in from the beginning. There was this form that they gave us right before we went to the screening, where they said, when did you decide to see this movie? Was it yesterday? Was it today? Was it a few days ago? And I said, how about, 3 years ago, because this movie was shot 3 years ago, and I read about it then, and I've been waiting for it ever since. Finally, MGM got all their financial stuff sorted out, so we get a new Bond film. The Red Dawn remake is going to be coming out, and of course this movie as well. So I've been pumped to see this for a while. What else didn't I like about it? Not much else beyond that, actually. Yeah, I don't have many complaints about this. It was lots of fun. A lot of people talk about the last section of the movie, the last 20 minutes, and I won't say a word about what happens there, except I have to say it's definitely worth the price of admission. It's big, and it's bad, and it's fun, and it's great. It's just really, really great. Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to say anything about that, and I'm not going to say any more about any, secret whatevers, surprise whatevers that might be happening. So that's basically my review. For those of you who are new to my channel, have never watched any of my videos before, I'm actually doing a whole series on Joss Whedon. I've talked about a bunch of the films that he's written on and worked on, and I'm going to be getting into the television shows that he's done, all leading up to, of course, The Avengers, which he screenwrote and directed, which is coming out in just 3 weeks' time. Oh my goodness. I'm waiting for this movie for over 2 years, and it's finally going to come. I can't wait. And I have a strong feeling that The Avengers is actually going to be better than The Cabin in the Woods. As good as The Cabin in the Woods is, it's not something that I really, connect to emotionally. It's more like, oh, that was really clever and fun, and I liked it a lot. But it's not something where you really get emotionally involved in what's happening. Whereas, The Avengers, I'm sure, will be pretty emotionally involving, because Joss Whedon is good at that. He's good at that at, pretty much anything that he does. So that's great. Really looking forward to that. And I like The Cabin in the Woods a lot. And right now, of all the movies I've seen this year, I would rank it number 2 of the best movies that I've seen. Right behind John Carter. I'm not kidding. John Carter's really, really good. It's such a shame that it's one of the biggest flops of all time now. I really like that movie a lot. A lot of fun and spectacular. Really, really good. It's such a shame. It's a poorly marketed movie. Anyway, there's my review of Cabin in the Woods. Thanks very much for watching, and again, more Joss Whedon on my channel. 2 videos a week up until The Avengers. Hope you'll tune in for that. Thanks very much.